Yesterday, 80 years ago, the Rats of Tobruk were born, soldiers of the Australian-led garrison that held the Libyan Port of Tobruk in World War II. Between April and August 1941, 35,000 allies, including 14,000 Australian soldiers, were besieged in Tobruk by a German-Italian army commanded by General Rommel. The soldiers adopted Tobruk's network of below-ground defensive positions built pre-war by the Italian army. A propagandist for Germany, William Joyce, better known as Lord Haw-Haw, began describing the besieged men as living like rats in underground dugouts and caves. He derisively referred to the garrison as the Rats of Tobruk. By the time the Rats were relieved of duty between August and October 1941, 3,000 had become casualties, 941 taken prisoner. But the Australians reclaimed the name as a badge of pride, even striking their own unofficial medal bearing the likeness of a rat, and the metal used to make the medals came from a German bomber that the Rats had shot down with captured German guns. Today, the Rats of Tobruk hold an important place within the ranks of our returned servicemen. There is a Rats of Tobruk memorial in Canberra. In March 1944, the original members of the Rats of Tobruk formed the North Bondi sub-branch of the Returned and Services League of Australia. It's still known as Tobruk House or Rat House. Indeed, in 2003, the New York Times ran an article on the Rat House, calling it an ideal beachside hangout. The overarching international association, the Rats of Tobruk Association, has an insignia showing the elements of a large uppercase letter T for Tobruk, a long-tailed desert rat, and a crown. In Australia, there are a number of memorials, some of which are replicas of the memorial in the Tobruk Cemetery, which was built around January 1942, subsequently replaced and then later destroyed. So if you're in Canberra, check out the Rats of Tobruk Memorial and spare them a thought. Notice its eternal flame. The Brisbane Rats of Tobruk Memorial is in the Roma Street Parklands. There's one also at Ithaca Creek State School in Barden, and there is also a Tobruk Memorial at the Beenleigh St Joseph's School, and there are memorials in Bundaberg, Rockhampton, Mackay. Toowoomba's Rats of Tobruk Memorial is at East Creek Park, that's on the corner of Margaret and Burstow Streets. In 2007, the Victorian contingent of the Rats of Tobruk Association decided they could no longer afford the upkeep of Tobruk House, the inner-city Melbourne meeting hall that had been purchased by the association in the 1950s. The then Victorian Association of the Rats of Tobruk had 1,800 members. Well, by 2007, there were just 80 left, all aged in their 80s and 90s. They decided to sell the hall, and if they could raise $1.5 million, they'd donate it to research at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, where a neuroscience ward, the Rats of Tobruk ward, had been named after them. But a wealthy industrialist, Bill Gibbons, outbid a Sydney developer. He bought Tobruk House and told the veterans they could keep it as long as they wanted it. The memory of the Rats of Tobruk should remain as long as we understand the notions of service and sacrifice. The legend began 80 years ago yesterday. I wonder what the classrooms of Australia would be teaching today about this. I suspect absolutely nothing.